There are some people who it's going to be a little bit embarrassing. I mean, look, Mitch McConnell obviously is going to feel no shame about this. Lindsey Graham, who will be sitting on the judiciary, chairing the Judiciary Committee, he has his whole story, right? It's Brett Kavanaugh. Because of the way that Brett Kavanaugh was treated, that's why we should completely reverse our position from 2016. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable if, and right now, Donald Trump has a list of something like, 45 people. Most recently came out with a new 20-name list of potential Supreme Court picks. I think every single one of them is a Federalist Society member, which would make sense. There are two you're hearing the most about. One is Amy Coney Barrett. She's in the Seventh Circuit. She is extremely conservative. She belongs to and this has become an issue, and this was an issue, I guess, Dianne Feinstein brought up when Coney Barrett was was nominated to the appellate court. She belongs to an interesting, I guess, covenant, or I don't know what
ecumenical organization, I think you would call it.
An ecumenical organization? That's a very ecumenical way of saying that.
Is that like a secret society?
Well, I mean, sort of. It is the group called the People of Praise. This is a New York Times report. She is a member of a group called People of Praise. The group members, quote, swear a lifelong oath of loyalty to one another and are assigned and accountable to a personal advisor. It's sort of like what we got going here on the show. Moreover, the Times added, the group teaches, this is a quote, that husbands are the heads of their wives and should take authority for their family. That's
the husband is going to be on the Supreme Court too.
So well, yeah,
or the husband says, you are to sit on the Supreme Court. You're going to be a judge. The newspaper quoted legal experts who worried that such oaths could raise legitimate questions about a judicial nominee's independence and impartiality.
Yeah, I think generally secret allegiances have difficulty being compatible with democracy. But
the website describes the group as an ecumenical, charismatic, covenant community. I mean, there's a covenant between each other. We're going to do X, Y, or Z. Modeled on the first Christian community. Freedom of conscience, the website says, is the key to our diversity.
Did Pete Buttigieg write this copy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, when he was working for McKinsey.
But this is she is in the pole position, as it were. There's a second judge that we're hearing quite a bit about, Barbara Lagoa. She is a child of, I think, Cuban immigrants. And she is equally conservative in many respects, perhaps not quite as religious, but it's unclear. Maybe of a different sort of ilk, as it were. But in terms of intensity of religion, I don't know that she belongs to a covenant of where she swears a lifetime oath to other people. But she has a 14-year tenure as a state and federal judge. She has some interesting ideas on executive power and particularly voting rights. Lagoa both sat on the Amendment 4, I think it was, case in state court and in federal court. And that is a referendum that was passed by the voters of Florida saying that felons who have served their time can have their voting rights restored. And there was an attempt by the legislature after the people of Florida made that decision to unwind it by saying that many of those thousands of felons have fees and fines, mostly fees, that they owe the courts, and that they cannot vote until they pay those fees. And if that sounds like a price to vote, like a poll tax, the reason is because it's sort of like a poll tax. Not only did people expect Lagoa to recuse herself when she was on the federal bench hearing this case, they also was sort of put off by the fact that she seems to have no problem with poll taxes, which is reminiscent. She has no problem with poll taxes if they coincidentally disenfranchise people, which is sort of reminiscent of what they tried to do with the 13th Amendment, and which they did do with the 13th Amendment for that matter, which was to say, like, well, you can't have a law saying you can't vote if you're black, but you can have, and that's basic, and ending it there. But the idea that you can pass laws that you know will prevent a lot of black people from voting, yeah, you got some wiggle room there. So later, we passed the 24th Amendment, which said no poll tax. But she interprets that as saying, well, you can't specifically charge people to vote, but you can charge them for things that they need to do to put themselves in a position to vote, like register to vote. So those are that. I mean, those give you like a little bit of a taste of who these folks are, and it is likely one of them will be the Supreme Court justice. Donald Trump wants to appoint a woman, and I think the right would like a woman who oversees at least and provides maybe the fifth vote to, if not overturn Roe v. Wade in its entirety, but to eviscerate it in such a way that we end up with abortion illegal. It's effectively banned in probably about a half a dozen states in the country in terms of people's access and the existence and the ability to have an abortion clinic. But it will explicitly ban abortion ultimately in like 24 states, I think, at this point, depending on what the future of those states are in terms of the legislatures, which is another reason why you should be going out and working for state reps and local lawmakers, get them elected. But it is likely it'll be one of these two. If it is Amy Coney Barrett who ends up winning the nomination, like I say, she is a judge on the Chicago-based Seventh Circuit of Appeals, and she was put there a couple of years ago. Barrett is the one who is part of the People's Family. What is it again?
People of Praise.
Yeah, the People of Praise. That's the covenant community. This is what she said back in 2016 as to why it was inappropriate for Barack Obama to appoint a Supreme Court justice during a presidential election year. And it's interesting. Her comments are a little bit different. Like, everybody on the right is trying to figure out what's going to be their alibi as to how come they've changed their mind. Lindsey Graham pretends that it was the Kavanaugh hearing, even though he reiterated his pledge to not have an election, a nomination or a confirmation in an election year. She's going to have a little bit of a trickier time if she has to go in front of the Senate Judiciary and explain this comment, I think.
Kennedy, the arguments will be that situation was distinguishable. The nomination, the vacancy did not arise in the presidential election year. It arose the year before in June when Justice Powell retired. And Justice Kennedy was nominated in November of the prior year. Moreover, he was nominated after Bork's nomination had failed and Ginsburg withdrew his nomination. So the wrangling for the spot, the conversation about the spot, the existence of the spot had been in play for a long time before that. Moreover, Kennedy is a moderate Republican, and he replaced a moderate Republican, Powell. We're talking about Justice Scalia, the staunchest conservative on the court, and we're talking about him being replaced by someone who could dramatically flip the balance of power on the court. It's not a lateral move, and.
Well, they were nodding at that. Now, I believe Amy Coney Barrett represents a dramatic flip in the balance of power. And we may even see it in the context of the Affordable Care Act or in Roe v. Wade. I wonder how she's going to answer that question if she is the nominee. When someone says, hey, it wasn't just about timing, which you said, now maybe you got to, but it also was about the nature of the replacement. Are you suggesting that you are not ideologically, diametrically opposed to where Ruth Bader Ginsburg was? I mean, I'm sure they had some crossover, the Venn diagram, but if you can make that argument about Scalia, how could you not make that argument about Ginsburg? So that should be interesting to see how that works out. And by interesting, I mean still, sort of frustrating and in no way going to, it's just going to be interesting to see what she says if she ends up being the nominee. Lagoa is being pushed because Donald Trump needs to win Florida. And there is a sense that if he appoints Lagoa, that will help him in Florida. We shall see. I imagine now, because that's been set up, if he doesn't, maybe it hurts him in Florida. Right? Is there anything worse than having unmet expectations?